If you fancy yourself as royalty, well, maybe I've got some good news for you, and that is that Bomb King is good once again. Our explosive royal. Now, I've wanted to cover Bomb King for quite a while now, and not just for his current status in the game and sort of the tier and the level that this champion is at the moment, but also sort of the moral story of Bomb King and sort of the sadistic side of this. Literally, his subjects are bombs in his hands. They look at him with so much love and faith in their king, and then you just throw them out and blow them up, and that's the end of their existence. Those poor little bombs. The stickies are so cute, and even the grumpy bombs, I mean, they're the uglier ones, and you know, maybe not as useful to the bomb society, but at the same time, their king is literally using them to explode. I mean, there's some pretty sinister stuff going on with Bomb King, pretty sinister indeed. But what I want to talk about today is that in OB46, Bomb King was patched to have some lag compensation. And from what I understand, it meant that some of the calculations went client-side over server-side a little bit, so that basically even if you have lag, or sometimes the server doesn't catch on to your bomb, likely if you see throwing your sticky bomb out, and getting a hit, then more often than not, you will actually get that hit. I still think that's not completely true, as sometimes when there is a little bit of latency issue, and I've been playing with a bit of high latency recently because my internet's been dying, sometimes you'll throw out your bomb, the radius will show on the enemies that you're throwing it at, and they'll be inside the radius of that bomb, but they won't take any damage. But now it is more regular and more consistent in you throwing out that damage. And because previously he was patched to have extra damage further out in the radius, so you don't have to exactly get the sticky bomb onto somebody, it's actually worked out that Bomb King is doing a lot of damage at the moment, and is definitely up there in the damage category of champions at the moment. And honestly, I've always said that Bomb King is one of the most fun champions to play, and with the legendary card Accelerant, being able to go across the map and basically flank and basically do a lot of damage on top of somebody, it also gives Bomb King a lot of mobility and also an ability to come in and burst somebody down. I do think bringing back this extra mobility, before there was just a huge knockback on the poppy bombs, and even on the enemies it was ridiculous. Now that's not so much the case, but on yourself, you can now launch yourself back basically halfway across the map, pretty much. And that's reliable as well to get over to an enemy. His Grumpy Bomb is just generally a great utility as well that Bomb King has to stun people on a point, and to spam it whilst you're in the air allows you to throw it a bit further with the momentum and the arc of the drop. And also his ultimate is one of those big team buster ultimates that can win you a whole point. Personally, I'm not amazing at Bomb King at the moment. I'm trying to play him as much as possible because I'm having fun with him at the moment, and I do feel he is in a much better place at the moment. Maybe a little too good, but I'm getting there and having a lot of fun with him. But I've got to say that I've had some pretty terrible ultimates the past day or so, and yeah, they're kind of embarrassing, so maybe you'll see some of those in the footage, so be sure to watch out for those rubbish ultimates. Literally, they are not worthy of royalty. I think that we can say that for certain. A few people in my last video and in videos when I've shown Bomb King are quite surprised that you can explode the bombs in the air and still do damage. That's actually one of the things that makes Bomb King quite viable at the moment, is that you don't have to stick somebody with a sticky bomb, and why I don't normally go for that extra damage on each shot, because basically if you can explode it in the air, you can fire off another bomb quicker than you normally could, and also you can be a bit more accurate at hitting groups of enemies if you're blowing up in the air, and generally just being quick, going throw bomb, throw bomb, throw bomb. It can work quite well. Actually, one tip I would say is that you need to sort of get used to how far and what the time is on that drop, and make sure that you're always exploding the bomb when it's reaching the enemy. You don't necessarily have to hear the tock or whatever it is, the sort of sound when it hits somebody, but just know when it's close enough to blow it up and still get the max damage. You can even take out aerial targets like a Drogos or an Androxus that's floating around in the air with these poppy bombs quite reliably, if you can hit these consistently and know sort of the angle of drop and the time it takes for the bomb to fly through the air. But that can only be gotten through practice and maybe going to the training area and just watching how long it takes to go across, and getting used to that and then putting that into your play. I think also if you're firing off each shot singularly, so one at a time, you don't get kicked off as much by the fact that Bomb King fires like left and right slightly. If you actually fire at a wall, you'll see that one goes to the right, one goes to the left, and vice versa. It sort of like goes off, so that can be quite confusing. But when you're throwing them off as singularly, you're always bringing a cursor through, you're always firing just generally in that area. Another tip is that when you fire yourself, it's best to throw your Grumpy Bomb in the air because they have longer time to travel, and it'll basically, once it hits the ground, it'll go further because once you're in the air, it'll have more of an arc to drop down, whereas if you just throw it up into the air from the ground, it'll basically have less of an arc. So if you imagine like how far it can go up and how far it can drop, that arc doesn't have as much of a distance when you throw it up just from the ground because the distance from going up will be shorter and going down will be shorter. So when you throw it in the air, it'll have more chance to curve down onto an enemy. Also, once you've thrown it in the air, it'll have more time to tick down and be closer to its detonation. So often you can Poppy Bomb, then throw your Grumpy Bomb onto the ground towards the enemies whilst you're flying in, then start trying to throw your sticky bombs wildly, and hopefully either you'll kill them with your sticky bombs or your Grumpy Bomb will stun them, and then you can kill them with your sticky bombs when they're stunned. Now the only thing is, when you go in quite aggressively, you can't get out again because you don't have your Poppy Bomb up. So you have to sort of be aware of who you're jumping into. I wouldn't jump into more than 2 people, and maybe make sure you're going into an individual player. But this can definitely be great for taking out some of those backline damage dealers like a Kinessa or a Victor. But Kinessa is probably one of the ones that can sort of pick you off in the air and give you a lot of grief. So taking them out can give you a bit more breathing room to throw your sticky bombs without being harassed. I do think with the Poppy Bombs, you can actually take on and duel a lot of the flankers and damage dealers face to face. If you can successfully hit those shots, and basically I would say just don't panic when they're coming at you, you can win most 1v1 situations because your DPS is just that high. On the ultimate, and I know that I've said that I fail mostly at the ultimates, but it's more about the situation and the timing. I think I've failed. But basically, if you use your Poppy Bomb to go up into the air, get your ultimate going, you'll basically be harder to hit because one of the things with Bomb King's ultimate is that it's very easy to take you out whilst you're rolling in. You're pretty slow, and you're just generally this big ball rolling slowly towards people. But if you're in the air, you go faster, you go in an arc, you can go further, and also you can control yourself a bit more in the air. Thinking about control, actually, to control yourself in the air, you do need the Poppy Bomb air control card. So I would say get Air Blast 2 at least, because this card is going to allow you to have that air control whilst you're using your massive jump with your Poppy Bomb and your Accelerant, the legendary. And this will basically allow you to be very mobile and control where you're landing when you throw yourself upwards, and to do what I've talked about before, like spamming on the floor, getting the Grumpy Bombs off, attacking somebody from above, and getting the drop on them, really. You can even be dropped on by another Bomb King as Bomb King and think, like, oh, I should have known that they'd come over above me, because obviously that's where they're going to come from, but you don't expect this big flying bomb to be above your head, to be honest. But yeah, that is probably the most important card out of the loadout, but you can check out my main loadout. It's the 6th. If you go to your loadouts, import a loadout, go to the name Joshino, and look at the 6th, my main loadout is the one that I'm currently using quite a bit. It's got a little bit of Grumpy Bomb, reduced cooldown. It's got a little bit of cooldown of the Poppy Bomb for every time you detonate a sticky bomb, reload speed slightly, and finally that heal alongside that Poppy Bomb. I think a few things could be changed around there. Perhaps the Grumpy Bomb could be enhanced a bit more. Maybe the heals aren't as important on the Poppy Bomb, but I think for the most part it does work and has been doing well recently. And as I've got better with Bomb King, we've been playing quite well. We've been getting a lot of kills, a lot of damage out, more damage than I did before anyway. So anyway, there was just some tips and thoughts on the current Bomb King. I'm learning still a little bit, so I'm not exactly a pro, but I do think that I'm getting there with Bomb King, and I'm glad that he is back sort of in the meta, and one of the champions that is shining again, because he just is so fun to play, especially with the new Poppy Bomb, with the legendary, because that was what made Bomb King fun before, that ridiculous Poppy Bomb. Anyway, what does everyone else think about Bomb King? Have you been playing him at all this patch. Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. That's something worth mentioning actually, that Bomb King is quite frustrating to play against because of how I think the client side is registering. Sometimes you don't think that the poppy bombs are anywhere near you or getting the damage that they should be, and sometimes it can be a bit frustrating to die to a Bomb King because unlike a Drugger's, you don't see that rocket flying towards you often, and it can leave you smashing the keyboard. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a royal like. If you didn't enjoy it, then well, you can poppy bomb the hell out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Dislike it if you really have to. Subscribe for more of my content, and I'll see you all next time. Joshino.